Hey guys, Gina here. I'm going to go ahead and get into lesson 1.4. The title of this lesson is Evaluating Algebraic Expressions. So we're starting to progress a little bit now. We're heading into some more common, so to speak, algebra expressions. And when we're dealing with algebra, we're always dealing with some sort of an unknown. So for example, here for number 8, which I went ahead and wrote it for you, the unknown is the x and also the y values. And these are unknowns, and we're solving for these unknowns, or we're using the information to substitute into the problem. So if you look at 1.4 on page 12, it starts off by talking about why we substitute and what that process looks like. Over here to the side, I kind of made a little short note for you about the rules for evaluating algebraic expressions, and they're pretty simple. The first one is just simply you're going to substitute, and the second one is just simplify. So on page 13, you get several different examples of different opportunities where you can substitute, whether it is finding the area of a circle or converting Celsius and Fahrenheit back and forth, or finding the volume of a cylinder. All of these different equations and formulas you should be fairly familiar with, but I want to go ahead and work a few for you just in case you're not. I am going to start with number 8 as my first example today. I'm going to go a little out of order because I just want to sort of progress through. Number 8 is similar to your example problem 1.4a on page 12. Basically, what I'm looking to do here for number 8 is the directions say evaluate each expression, and it gave me this information: x equals 5, y equals 3, and z equals 2. I don't have a z in problem number 8, so I'm only going to need to understand what my x is equal to and what my y is equal to, and then I'm just going to simplify this expression. So I'm going to substitute in 5 for x raised to the 4th power. So that's going to turn into 5 raised to the 4th power. I am simply just replacing the x with its value of 5. I'll copy down my 2. Next, I'm going to have x raised to the 2nd power. And to keep it nice and clean, I'm going to go ahead and just put this in its parenthesis, because remember, anything next to it means multiplication. And now I need to substitute in the value for y, which is 3. I will also put it in parentheses. Copy down my plus sign, my 2, and then here's another y. So I have to substitute in another 3. I have my expression completely substituted with my values for my unknowns, and now I am simply moving forward like I would with my please excuse my dear Aunt Sally problems. So we talked before that parentheses were the first step, but in every parenthesis that I have, there's nothing to do. So my parentheses are essentially finished. Those parentheses now just represent multiplication problems. So after my parentheses, you find exponents, E for exponent. And 5 to the 4th power is the exact same thing as saying 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. That's what 5 to the 4th power represents. 5 times itself 4 times. And if you put this into your calculator, you'll discover that it's 625. 625 is the same thing as 5 raised to the 4th power. I can progress now the remainder of my problem. I can either copy down, or I can look for multiplication or division, or finish out this other exponent. And I do see one, so I'm going to say subtract 2. 5 raised to the 2nd power is 5 times 5, which is 25. Copy down my times 3, which is represented by a parentheses and 3. And copy the rest of my problem. Now, I have no parentheses that require work. I have no exponents remaining, so please excuse my dear. I'm on my multiplication and division step, and I'm going to do them in order from left to right. So I start at 625. There's not a multiplication problem there, so I can just copy that back down. 625 minus, I can start right here. This is the first one I'm going to run into. 2 times 25, and 2 times 25 is 50. I have to keep my times by 3, my add. And I can go ahead now at this step and multiply this one as well. If you don't feel comfortable multiplying this one at this step, you do not have to. You can just draw it out and go a little slower in your steps. I'll start back over, 625. I still have some multiplication problems in here. So I need to work this 50 times 3. That's my next multiplication, 50 times 3. That is 150. And copy down my plus 6. Now, if you do the final math, 625 minus 150 plus 6, you end up with a grand total of 481. And this is the simplified version of my original algebraic expression because I substituted in my values for my unknown variables, both my x and my y. And I just substituted them in. So that's kind of how lesson 1.4 gets started. And then as you move through your homework, you have a couple of other aspects that you're going to cover here. I'm going to leave my rules up and just erase this all. I guess I'm not. I'm going to just clear my page. Okay, fair enough. So let's move into some more of your problems. Number 3 asks you to find the area of a triangle. And just like any other formula that you might use, you can use the triangle formula, the area of a triangle formula, and that's given in your directions. A equals 1/2 base times height. This is what this stands for. 1/2 base times height. In problem number 3, they tell us that the base is 4 feet, and they tell us that the height is 1/2 foot. Now, what does this mean, this base and height? Basically, it means this. If I have a triangle, I'm trying to determine the area, this down here is the base. That is this distance from one side to the other. It's the base of your triangle. Then if I'm trying to figure out what height is the apex of the triangle directly down to the base, and it forms a right angle. So here's my height, and here's my base. And those are the measurements I'm taking from my triangle to solve this problem. I want to determine the area, so I leave my big capital A. I leave my 1/2. My base is equal to 4 feet. I can put the foot sign in there if I want to, or I can leave it out at this point. And my height is equal to 1/2 of a foot. I'll just put those indications in there just to be certain. And I just start multiplying. So my first multiplication problem is 1/2 of 4. So A equals 2. I'll leave off foot this time. Times 1/2. And half of 2 is 1. And I can go ahead and put my foot back on there. And I am finding area, so I want to show this as squared. That's a 2. So the area of this triangle is 1 foot squared. And that is how you solve the first section of problems. You just use the area formula for a triangle, substitute in your base and your height until you find your final value. I solved number 8. That's our next set of finding the expression value. So you shouldn't have any problem with those. Numbers 13 through 16 cover simple interest. And simple interest is pretty simple, actually. So let me talk about the formula for simple interest. That formula is I, that stands for interest, equals PRT. So let's talk about what each of these numbers represent or stand for. I is interest. P represents your principal. R represents your rate. And T represents time. And in this particular formula, the time is in years. So it represents time in years. And if you're unfamiliar with simple interest is basically the amount of money that you pay someone to let you borrow money. So for example, if you needed to borrow $1 today, and you said, hey Gina, let me borrow $1. And I said, sure, but I'm going to charge you some interest. Then when you paid me back the $1, you would need to pay me back my $1 plus the value of the interest. So if I said I was going to charge a 50% interest rate that was going to occur daily, then you would borrow that dollar from me, and every day that you go without paying that dollar back to me, you owe me another 50 cents because it's a 50% interest rate. So simple interest is basically just the amount of extra money that you're going to owe for borrowing money in the beginning. So let's solve a couple of our, or at least one of our simple interest problems. I'm going to solve the number 13 for you. So number 13 uses our simple interest formula, and we already have it over here, so we don't need to recopy it down. But it does tell me that P is valued at $43,200. My rate is 16.5%. This is a really high interest rate. When you're older, if you borrow money at 16% interest rate, this is not a good deal. And the time of this loan is 15 years. And notice that our time is in years, so we don't have to do any conversions there. And each 13 and 14 is given to you in years, but 15 and 16 are not. They're given to you in months. So be sure to convert that. And if you have questions about that conversion, please let me know. So I'm going to use our interest formula, I equals PRT. I'm solving for I, so I don't have anything to substitute in for I. I want to find out what I is going to equal. P is 43,200. I'm going to multiply that by the rate, which is 16.5%. And I'm going to multiply that by my time in years, which is 15 years. Now, I'm just about ready to solve this problem, but I do have one little hiccup. One thing that I have to take care of is I can't put 16.5% into my calculator. I must convert this percentage into a decimal. So let's have a little sidebar conversation about this. 16.5%, if I want to change it to a decimal, then I'm going to move this decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2, and I have to put my decimal here. So I'm going to actually rewrite this as 0.165. Again, this is something that you should have had plenty of practice in in pre-algebra. But if this concept is confusing to you, send me an email and let me know. But when we convert percentage to a decimal, we move it 2 places. Move our decimal 2 places to the left. 2 places to the left. That's the rule. So I need to rewrite my problem, moving my decimal and getting rid of my percentage sign. So I equals 43,200 multiplied by 0.165, no more percent because I've moved my decimal, multiplied by 15. I can put all this directly into the calculator. I'm going to come up with my final answer, which is interest equals $106,920. $106,920. And that is your simple interest. Let me clear the page one more time. And I want to do one more problem for you, and then I'll do one of your review section as well. So let's talk about the distance formula. Just like I used a formula to solve area of a triangle, just like I substituted in my values for my expression, and I did the same thing with my simple interest. I substituted in values for expression. I have to do the same thing if I am trying to determine distance. Distance is a pretty simple formula. D equals RT. So let's talk about what each of these are focusing on. D is the distance. R is my rate. And T is my time. So for number 18, we know that our rate is 32 miles per hour. And our time is 4.5 hours. And we're already in hours, so we're good here. We can leave this alone, and we can calculate for our measurement. So I need to copy down my formula, D equals R times T, and then just directly substitute in these values. So my R value is going to come here, my T value is going to come here, and then I can just solve and do my multiplication. D equals 32 miles per hour multiplied by 4.5 hours. Now, you might have learned this in pre-algebra as well, that these hours are going to cancel each other. So we don't have to worry about hours anymore. We just need to simply do the math, which is D equals 32 times 4.5, which is 144. And what's left is this miles, 144 miles. So if you're going 32 miles per hour, and you stay at this steady rate for 4.5 hours, you are going to drive 144 miles. And that's your distance formula. So again, you have several that are very similar to that. Definitely check your time. You want to make sure the time is in hours for the distance formula. And you want to make sure that your time is in years for your simple interest formula. And if it's not, you need to convert that measurement before you apply it to your formula. So then just doing one for you in the review for today's problems, let's go ahead and solve number 4. Number 4 says this: express each statement algebraically. The square of 1 more than x. So I have to square, put the little 2 up there, something 1 more. So 1 more of something. So here's my something plus my 1 more, and then I'm going to set it all up as being squared. And that's how I would write this expression. It says the square of 1 more than x. Here's my x right here. Here's my 1 more, and here's all of it being squared. Okay, guys, that's all I have for today. Hopefully you don't have any problems with 1.4 and that you've had a fantastic first week. The biggest take back here is when we are moving through this first chapter, there are so many things that some of us are going to know and some of us are not, depending on what we did for our pre-algebra course. So I need to know where you are. As you start to finish your homework assignments, please go ahead and email them back to me. You can do that at choicelearningonlineacademy@gmail.com. Send that on over to me so that I can be grading them, sort of see where you are as a math student. If you have any questions at all, I want you to post those concerns or questions on the discussion board. It's fair game to say, hey, I'm having a problem with number 6 in lesson 1.2. Can anybody help me out? Help each other, explain the process to each other if you know how to do it. If we can't get any help from our peers, definitely reach out to me and I can put the answer to those problems on the discussion board for you. My goal is that you'll walk away learning math so that you are prepared for your ACT and your college level math experiences. Have a great weekend.